Hello and welcome to Bolt Action Reloading. In this week's video, we're going to go deeper into our load development with our Thompson Center Compass chambered in 300 Winchester Magnum. We're going to be looking at the Nosler Custom Competition and Hogdgon H1000. Stick around. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here and you'd like to see how I and the rest of you here make our group smaller, start now by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon. That way you get notified when I post new videos and you won't miss anything. If you've been following our project already, you'll know that we've had a less than stellar beginning. If you haven't checked it out, I'll put a card up so you can go check that video out. Our groups have been less than stellar. Our statistics haven't been good either. Pretty much across the board, we've been unimpressed with our results. The only bullet that has seemed to actually shoot okay for the 5-shot groups was the one 5-shot 180 grain soft core that had horrible standard deviation and extreme spread numbers, and our actual first two groups of the Hornady 100 grain soft points. But again, those still had less than stellar velocity statistics. In case you're unaware, there's another good discussion going on at the Giants Reloading Bench channel. I'll put a link in the description box below. I encourage you, if you're interested in this project, to check his channel out as well, as I'm sure he'll be doing workup on essentially the same exact rifle and finding out what works for him. By looking at the results of our testing, besides our basic extreme disappointment with our groups and our first loads, it is entirely possible that the loads we chose were really not good nodes. And because of this, that really might have hurt our statistics. We're going to hope that this is the case in this week's video, and in today's video we're primarily going to work with H1000 in finding out with the components we have here on the table where we might actually load this cartridge to get a good velocity node. One of our other problems, after watching some of the Johnny's Reloading Bench videos, as well as taking measurements in our own rifle, we'll know that this rifle has a very long throat. I'll re-put up the same chart of the 5 bullets we've already tried in this video, just to give you guys an idea of how far these bullets are actually off the lands. Now what we probably should do for today's video is actually take our new brass and load all these a little bit longer, learn our lesson, and see where our pressure curve would be. But what fun would that be? We do know as we extend our bullets out, the pressure in our case should actually go lower, so we're actually going to stick with our overall length of 3.34 and maintain the lengths you see in this chart today for the Nosler Custom Competition, just to find out where our statistics are going to be. And in the next video, we're actually going to start exploring seating depth with that actual charge. Talking a little bit about components today, as you'll see on the table, one of the things that might be a consideration as well, you might be aware of, is brass. Up until this point, we've actually used SIG brass as well as some other random brass that we've acquired from firing some factory ammunition. However, doing some quick measurements on this, there really isn't a whole lot of consistency in it. So I believe brass could possibly be contributing to the fact of our less than stellar results. I know in 6.5 Creedmoor, I've certainly found that when I have more consistent brass, my statistics certainly become better. So in doing some research, I thought, what better than to find some premium brass? And one of the other guys in our community, West Desert Shooter, has been shooting ADG. I actually reached out to ADG and specifically asked them about their 300 Win Mag offering. And they actually contributed 50 pieces to our channel for evaluation, and I was honestly very happy to get them. These cases are made in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, are packaged very nicely, but before I go too far down this rabbit hole, I really do intend to do an extended review of this brass, show you guys all you want to know about it. So that's not what we're going to do in this video. If you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe, and that video will be coming down the pike here on the channel. So primarily what we're doing today is looking at statistics and hoping to find a node where we can continue to load and find better statistics, but also see if we possibly see an increase in our accuracy just because of the quality of our brass. Or are we going to actually increase the coal to find accuracy in this rifle? So just to make sure we cover everything, in today's video, we're actually taking ADG Brass. This is new brass, never fired. And honestly, I was tempted just to run the neck mandrel through it, but at the advice of one of my subscribers, as I know you'd be cringing at my lack of initial brass preparation, we're actually full-length size all of our cases, and then ran our neck-turning expander mandrel through the necks to ensure the cases were uniform for our first firing. The powder today we're using is H1000. This is a very popular powder in this caliber and arguably might be the best option. I know it's performed well for me in 38 Lapua, and I'm hoping that consistency will follow to 300 Winchester Magnum. Our primer today, as you can see, is a Fed 215M match primer. Since I've been able to find these, since these are some of the best Magnum primers that you can find, we're not holding back on our premium components, and we're going to be using them on the project. Both of this picked out. Simply all we need to do is pick our projectile out, which we're going back to our Nosler Custom Competition. Out of the 5 we previously tested, the 150 grain soft point did perform the best as far as groups were concerned, but to be honest, it's just not the bullet I really want to shoot in a 300 Winchester Magnum. Our bullet length is going to be heavier, And since I really haven't had any good luck with Nosler bullets, but we used it with H1000, we're going to punish ourselves today and shoot them today on the channel. Looking at our load day today, things are actually going to get a little bit more complicated. Looking strictly at Hogdgon's website, they do have a 220 grain projectile, not this particular one from Nosler, listing the max charge at 78 grains of H1000 with a projected velocity of 2750. Now, looking actually at our Nosler reloading manual, they actually list the max charge for this projectile at 75.5 grains of H1000 at a projected velocity of 2677. Going back between those two figures, what we've actually picked as our max velocity we're going to load today is actually 76.5 grains. If we hit pressure before we get there, we're certainly going to stop and not continue, but I think realistically looking at the pressure, we're going to be able to get there today. Some of you have watched the channel before. This is going to be what I will call another modified Satterlee test. I'm sure I can hear the groaning already. I don't necessarily blame you. I've probably overdone this too many times in 6.5 Creedmoor, but today I'm not going in my 1/10 grain increments that I was before. Instead of following the advice of 0.2 grain increments like Scott Satterlee actually recommends, this is a larger case. We want to cover a little bit more space if we possibly can. We're actually going to go in 0.3 grain increments. This choice mostly because the case volume is large, but also the fact we do really want to gain a lot of ground and are hoping to maybe even find more than one node if possible. Today's video, we're only going to be covering 10 rounds. We're going to see how they shoot. Hopefully this will allow us to choose more intelligently next time when we do our cartridge overall length testing. I could walk you guys through the reloading process, but I'm sure by now you've seen how it goes, so we're going to skip that. I'll tell you guys in advance, since I've actually been struggling with groups on this, we did actually move our target back to 100 yards for today's test. For those of you who are tired of me shooting to 150 yards, stop cheering quite so loudly. So there you have it, guys. Honestly, it didn't even shoot that bad this time. If you're willing to call that top shot a flyer, our 9-shot group is just a little over 1.3 inches. If you'd like to take into account, I believe our group size is just a little over 2.2 inches. Keeping in mind, though, going from 73.8 grains all the way to 76.5 grains, there is a significant velocity shift. That is quite a change in powder charge. So honestly, we're obviously not shooting for groups today. And keeping our cartridge overall length short, we really weren't expecting stellar results. But honestly, that 9-shot group well outperformed the groups I was able to get with this before. So it's likely our brass has helped and we're heading in the correct direction. What we really ran today's test for is velocity nodes. So let's get out of the way and put the chart on the screen, and we can see it appears that there's a very large velocity node somewhere around 75.3 grains of H1000. Shots from 75.6 grains down to 75 grains only had an extreme spread of 3 feet per second. So that is pretty nice. Being able to get routine velocities like that has certainly been unattainable so far in this cartridge for us. If we wanted to step up to 75.9 grains, the 75.9 and 80.2 are very close, but I don't like my chances there near as much as I do somewhere around the 75.3 grain mark. Keeping in mind as well, the actual 2750 was where Hogdgon said our velocity would be at 78 grains. So we are significantly above that number, hitting 2832 all the way at our max of 76.5. So that 76.3 grain charge sure seems like a nice node and hopefully well within safe pressures. Consistently would certainly be nice right now, and staying away from those max charges is just fine with me, or at least for right now. And so I'm sure what you all want to see is, let's look at the pressure signs on the cases. As you guys will be able to see on the brass, there is plenty of primer cratering going on here. But honestly, all the factory ammo I've put on this rifle has also had that similar pressure sign. So there's really nothing here that's going to worry me. Looking at the brass all the way up to 76.5 grains, really no pressure signs on the brass that concerns me whatsoever. No ejector marks. Certainly nothing on the case necks that makes me wary at all. But again, looking where we're at with the velocities, I'm really not sure that going up makes any sense at this point. But if you guys feel differently, please let me know in the comments below. Our next step in this project, like I mentioned before, will be adjusting our seating depth. Hopefully we'll be able to take some of what we learned today, apply it to our testing going forward. Unfortunately, specifically with this round, we will not be able to actually get to the lands without still being able to fit the rounds in our magazine. In case I didn't mention it before, the actual cartridge overall length for this case loaded to our lands would have been 3.508 inches. And like I mentioned, 3.34 inches was our cartridge overall length that we loaded for today's testing. 3.475 inches is about a maximum dimension that we can fit in our magazine. But if we did want to single load these, 3.508 would be a possibility. Our other option looking at our chart, obviously of similar weight class, the 220 grain Sierra Match King is able to actually hit the lands in our rifle and still be loaded under our maximum cartridge overall length that fits in our magazine. So if we don't have any luck with this particular projectile, we might move to that, assume the similar data should be hopefully pretty close, and move on with that. I'm sure you guys would love to know about the cartridge overall length testing, but I encourage you to subscribe. Make sure that you stick around, and that will be coming down the pike, guys. I promise shortly. But even if you guys aren't reloading for 300 Winchester Magnum, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section below. If you'd like to keep up with this project, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you get notified when I post next week's video. I hope to see you back here next week. And until then, stay safe in small groups.